Good afternoon. I'm Mark Allen with Gaber.io, and I'm here today with Ben Woodard, the business development partner for A-Bio, a pharmaceutical company. Good afternoon, Ben. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
So this is the first for me. You're at a is that a pub or a restaurant in?
I'm in a pub. I was driving home from a site visit from a company in Baltimore. I had to be on site today, and we had this plan. This is like our third reschedule. I couldn't push off anymore, so I just stopped at a pub on the way down 95 South on the way home. I got myself a beer, and I'm here to talk to you today.
So you wouldn't be drinking alone.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers. So to start with, can you share a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
I'll keep my mind here focused. So.
Yeah. So to start with, can you share a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
Sure. So I was the director of the biotech research program at the University of Maryland for about a dozen years. I started there in '97 as an undergrad intern. Recently, though, with the pandemic and lots of leadership changes at the university, I was forced to retire in July. So I have a heavy background in biopharma, biotech education, and workforce development. Subsequently, when I got laid off, one of my former students, actually, Nate Forrest, is a principal engineer at A-Bio. He's like, "Hey, I see that you're laid off. You want to come work for me?" So the tides have changed a little bit. So, when he was 19, he was an undergrad working for me. Now that I'm 47, I'm a retiree at Maryland working for him. So it paid dividends to have him under my wing, and now he's paying it forward, and now I'm helping him grow his company.
Well, great. And I'm a big Buffalo Bills fan, so I'll give a shout out to the two biggest comebacks in sports history and football history, Frank Reich, right?
Frank Reich. Yeah, Frank Reich.
Yeah. I was at one of those games.
You're right. Yeah, I'm a little. It predates me a little bit. So I started at Maryland in '90. Well, it was '95. I think it was my first year. I graduated in '95. So yeah, I kind of came on the bad end of the Maryland football. Although we did have the fridge for a little while. Yeah, he was
playing he was in the NFL by then, and I went to the one where the Bills came back 38-3 against Houston, and he
put out good pro players, but our college players are lackluster. So we have a pretty good number of people come out for football. Yeah, we're more of a basketball school, I say. We're pretty good at basketball.
Yes. Yeah. So, what has been your experience with remote employment, both as an employee and an employer?
It's a challenge, because I will tell you this. So when I first started, when I was wrapping up my career at Maryland, I remember I was teaching a class on entrepreneurship right around March when the pandemic started to come into play in the United States. And I had been tracking the pandemic, I'm a biopharma guy. So I've been kind of watching it in Asia and watching it to, kind of migrate its way across the world. I'm like, all right, this is going to hit here soon. It's just a matter of when and where. And I remember, I can tell you the date. I was supposed to have a class on March 16th. It was a 4 to 6 p.m. class. And I knew there was going to be no kids there because it was spring break was the next day. So I was like, all right, I'll give you guys off this day and we'll regroup in 2 weeks. And that was it. That was the last time I taught a class in person. So March 6th, not even March 16th. It would have been the Thursday before when I gave the kids off the following week. And never went back in the office. So I had to adapt pretty quickly to teach a class that was primarily taught, with guest lecturers, getting in front of people, to be completely remote. And it was a challenge at first. I don't think anyone was prepared truly for the amount of resources it would take to really get started in that. I think if you could have a plan in place to have the right IT there, to have the right setup at home, to be able to do Zoom. I mean, I'm sure you've seen a million of the videos with cats and kids and people running around naked in the background and stuff like that. So I just don't think we were truly prepared. Like I remember I was using the only camera that I had was my little, MacBook Air. So, I'm teaching class now and I'm used to having a full whiteboard and all those resources available to me to now be just restricted to facing this 14-inch monitor, and that would be it. So I think the challenge presented itself that we weren't prepared for it. Yeah. That's what I would say. And it took a while for everyone to get to that pace. So we kind of wrapped up the spring semester. We got into the summer classes, and then when summer came, I think at least from the university standpoint, IT was a little bit more prepared. Like, all right, we're going to cancel some classes. We're going to move into an entirely online segment here. And what we're going to do, we're going to provide some resources. So again, they looked at like, is your chair comfortable? They did a lot of like, even like OSHA, where's your plug? Are you walking over extension cords? I mean, are you going to trip? I mean, where's your bathroom? All these things come into play because you don't think about them. I mean, how many, I can only imagine the infrastructure in someone's house when they're trying to teach without any of this or trying to do remote learning, like cords, extension cords, cables. I mean, do you have Wi-Fi? I mean, I'm sure people are still plugging in somewhere. So the university set out, like, they gave us a Logitech camera. That was a big thing. Like I wanted a desktop camera and you couldn't find them. They were just sold out. Your $90 camera was like $400 on Amazon. People were just, so I think a lot of the resources that needed to be in place weren't there. And I think we've seen in the past, what's been 8 months now, how we're starting to identify what is needed to be able to teach or be able to work remotely. So again, people have done a lot of different things inside their house. I mean, I hung some pictures up behind me. Like, in my office at home, I never thought about people looking at me. So it's just the plain back. You have a little, green screen behind you now.
Yeah.
But I hung up pictures of the kids and stuff like that. We kind of got used to it. And then when I started teaching, one of the challenges was, how do I use a whiteboard? So, I got a whiteboard. I put my desktop facing me and my laptop facing away from me, where I'd be able to write, transcribe on a wall and, kind of together. So I think understanding the technology is key to moving forward in this remote learning and remote teaching, remote employment world.
Yeah, well, and actually, usually I ask about remote employment, but I think I'll ask you, what do you think is the future of remote education and remote teaching? Because that's a totally different animal.
That's a challenge, I think, because one of the things that I was teaching in the summer was a laboratory course. And if anyone knows, if you've never held a solo cup, you have no idea what it feels like, right? So in order to teach a student how to hold material and feel material, I think that presents a challenge. There's lots of courses that can be taught. Lots of things can be done remotely, but I still think there's a need for a tangible object to be held at certain times. So from a remote learning standpoint, I think being able to interact with students from an equipment standpoint is going to be the challenge. Could we, I think a lot of schools, like I think Ohio State, for example, gives students a laptop when they enroll in the school. Maybe we think of this same thing as, instead of getting a laptop, you also get some tangible lab equipment. Could I send you a pipette? Could I send you? I have one of my friends is a geology major. Could I send a student, a box of rocks? What could we think about to be able to hold a device or hold an object really is immeasurable, that experience. To look at a virtual reality of something is one thing, but to physically hold it lies a whole different animal to it. So I think a combination of somehow getting something tangible in front of someone, and then having the instructor, be able to teach from that standpoint. What I was trying to allude to earlier was, when I started teaching these online classes, a friend of mine, my coworker, Kevin Napstein, and I were teaching these classes. We're like, why don't we just take our cell phones and we'll just tape them to our chests and take the camera outward, right? And so we made a little neck holder for our camera. So instead of being a selfie facing inward, it was facing outward.
Interesting.
So you got to see my hands doing a task instead of, a video of a task. There's a million SOPs, there's a million videos out there on how to do something. And it's just a matter of how that can be received by the student, right? So is it a matter of, I thought about this because Kevin and I both have a 2-year-old. We have a 3 and 5-year-old, almost identical ages of our kids. And all these videos of them unboxing presents, and that seems to be the way that young people are learning these days, is just to see a set of hands, like that, doing tasks. And that seems to be the way that people are learning these days. So like, why not do that for pharma and for the biotech or for sciences? If you can see my hands doing a task, maybe that has a benefit to the student, right? For years it's always been, let's look over the students in front of you shoulder. Let's look over the professor's shoulder, and you get this crazy angle of how he's doing things. So from our reviews that we got back from that class, it was pretty well received. A lot of students love that, but there's still going to be that one thing that's missing, which is that true hands-on environment. So I think we've got some challenges to be made in that, but I think we're in the right direction.
Yeah, and it can be a little bit of both. I mean, you can.
Yeah,
There's
I think
certainly
it's going to
part
have
of
to
it
be
you
a
can do
hybrid
remote,
model.
and then you got to just get together from time to time.
100% agree with you. I think there's no longer a need to have everyone in the workspace together, and that's going to be both academia and it's going to be both for industry, right? So,
Yeah.
I've got friends in the finance industry who are like, we're seeing that we don't need 40 people to do these jobs. We can do this with 20. So, I think the days of hiding in a cubicle and just getting a paycheck, that's probably people who skated by like that for a long time are probably going to be the first to go, because there's going to be a need for you've got to be able to hit the pavement. You got to be able to do a lot of these things that are required that don't need to be in front of people.
Right.
There still needs to be that team environment at some points, but you should be, I think, independent learning and independent, tasking is going to be a priority for everyone moving forward.
Yeah. So what is the story behind A-Bio? I know it's a pharma company, but tell us exactly what you do and who your target audience is.
So it's a pharma support company, right? So I guess the thing is, it's a project management engineering company whose primary focus is to really be represent owners in certain projects that they're doing. It's called our project management oversight. So, for example, if you need a new piece of equipment that comes in, if you're spending $1.5 million on a fill line, we call it, are you getting the right value for your money? So it's not always the highest price is always the best item, right? I'm sure we all know that. Mm-hmm. So what we do is represent the actual client, the actual industry themselves. So instead of taking their own engineers off of a task that's related to the actual product that can create value, what we do is we backfill in and we oversee these projects to make sure they're getting the best value for their money. And it can be anything from equipment validation or equipment selection, just project management. One of the things we're working on right now, I think I mentioned earlier in our offline discussion, is, Operation Warp Speed is bringing in a lot of money into this industry. So if you think about a manufacturing part that's going to go into your body, you still have to make that product, right? There's still the scientists and the engineers that are making the product. Now I've got to make it quicker, and I've got to make it in a hell of a lot more volume, right? So how do you do that? So how do you build out a building? How do you increase your facilities bandwidth to accommodate those needs of the industry of the people? Mm. That's where we step in. We kind of, you still have your experts who are producing the product, who are still making the actual pharmaceutical ingredient. But what we do, we step in and make sure that the overview, the project management behind that, is continuing to maintain its high level organizational chart. So we'll come in and say, all right, hey, person A, you're falling behind. Person B, you can't, it's a Gantt chart, right? So you can't go from one to the other until the first item is completed. And we want to make sure that that's all following, a high level order. That's when we come into play.
Interesting. So
we're not doing the actual manufacturing. We're just making sure that your ability to do the manufacturing is done in an effective manner.
So Operation Warp Speed had to have a huge effect on your company, especially
massive. Yeah, massive. I think we got $5 billion came into the state between, I think, the big player. I mean, you can Google the players. It was AstraZeneca, Johnson with J&J. There's, I can't remember all of them. There's some of them I can't mention, but all the players. I mean, Maryland's a big biotech hub, and so I think 4 companies got over $5 billion in the state of Maryland alone.
Wow.
I think it's 4. Yeah.
And then I'm assuming they're customers of yours, so that had an effect on you too, right?
Yeah, they find us, right? They're like, holy crap, how are we going to do this? So we need a lot more people than we have. So just you guys do, filling needs on the IT side. We're almost the same thing as you guys are. So, but we're doing it from an engineering standpoint, right? So you're doing the IT side, you're doing the programming, and so on and so forth. We're going to do the same thing as Gabriel does. We're going to come in, we're going to put our experts in place to supplement the technology that's already there. We're not changing things and changing structures. We're making sure that you guys can do it, our clients do it in a more effective manner that can meet the needs of their clients and ultimately produce vaccines that are safe for human use.
Yeah, and that's the key, safe for human use, right?
Yeah, I mean, because again, I think I mentioned this earlier, normally it's 7 to 10 years, 7 to 12 years from concept to final pharma, right? Before I can get an idea into your bloodstream. Now it's got to be 18 months, right? So, I mean, we're going on
about halfway through.
Almost. Yeah, we're going on 9 years though. I mean, we're going on 9 months from first virus in this first viral death in the United States, right? So normally that would take us 12 years to find out a solution for that. Now we got to do it in 12 months,
Yeah.
right? So everybody's hitting the pavement, everyone's got their boots on, and we're just pushing forward. You know, we've got to get this done as quick as we can. But again, not letting the safety fall away. That's the key component here, right? So I think you've seen in the news, there's, you know, there's a product in China already released, hasn't been tested. That's not going to fly in the United States. You know, that's not going to be kosher. No one's going to buy into that. So our job is to make sure, our industry's job is to make sure that we do this properly and that everyone becomes safe.
Yeah. And that explains why this is the first podcast I'm doing with someone that had to pull over in a bar to do the podcast, because you're just going crazy, right?
Yeah.
Well, and on that note, I want to thank you for your time today. This has been great. It's really fascinating to
Thanks, man.
know,
Thanks.
And it's good to know that there's people out there that are making sure it's still safe.
Yeah.
So I want to enjoy your beer, drive home safely, and
all right. Cheers. Thanks again, and
cheers.
have a great day. Yeah.
Thanks.
Look forward to. Good luck, everybody.
Thanks. Have a great one.